So we are going to be going over the quadratic formula. So one of the things that we'll be able to do is understand where it comes from. We'll be able to use it to identify what A, B, and C is. And we're going to be using it to solve a quadratic equation. So I touched on this formula earlier, and it's something we have also done last year. So this is just a different method to solving a quadratic equation, and it helps us find the x-intercepts. So for the standard form of ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, and we can see normally with an equation equals to y, we've made y as 0. It's trying to get x by itself, and that gives us x is equal to negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now, let's prove this because it's about knowing where the formula comes from. So if we look at, whoops, if we look at the standard form, so the standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c, and we're wanting x to find x value, so we've made it equal 0. Now, in anything that we do, we need to get rid of the number in the coefficient in front of the x squared. So what we're going to do, we're just going to divide everything by a. If I divide everything by a, I'm going to get x squared plus b over ax plus c over a is equal to 0. And 0 divided by anything will be 0. The next part that we do is we are going to complete the square. So if we need to complete the square, we always look at the value in front of the x, and we are just using the same rule, whatever that value is over 2, and we're squaring it. That's what we plus and we minus. So in this case, our b value is b over 8. So that's going to turn into b over a divided by 2 squared. I've written it in this form, because when we're dividing, I can change that to 2 over 1. We flip the fraction, and it becomes times. So that turns into b over a times by a half. 1 times b is b, 2 times a is 2a. So we've got plus or minus b over 2a squared. Okay, so if I rewrite this, then that means I've got x squared plus b over a x, and I'm adding b over 2a squared minus b over 2a squared plus c over a is equal to 0. That's the first step. The next step is we're going to turn this part into a perfect square. So the perfect square means that I will have x plus b over 2a squared. And then what is left over? Let me simplify this as I go. So this b over 2a squared, I'm going to minus power of 2. So that will turn into take away b squared over 2a in brackets squared, which is 2 squared is 4a squared plus c over a is equal to 0. Just to make it easier, this part here, I'm going to take over to the other side. So that gives me x plus b over 2a squared is equal to the b squared over 4a squared is negative, so it turns into a positive when I take it to the other side. 4a squared plus, oops, and the CA is plus, so it'll be a negative. Take away C over A. The next step is I want them to be the same, which means to make them the same, I need to get the denominator to be the same on the right-hand side. So I need to times this side by 4A. It should already start to look like the quadratic formula now. So because the denominators will be the same, I can have one denominator. So that will be x plus b over 2a squared. My denominator, of course, will be 4a squared. And then on the top, I've got b squared minus 4ac. The next part is I would like to get rid of the power on my left-hand side. So I'm going to square root everything. So that will be x plus b over 2a is, and I square root the b squared minus 4ac. Now, if I square root the bottom, the square root of 4 is 2, and the square root of a squared is a. The final step is getting x by itself. So I take away b over 2a. Negative b over 2a plus or minus, because it's a square root, square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. This is the exact formula that I showed you before. The only difference, so I'm just going to do it in blue, is the fact that we've got one denominator. So the whole thing would be out of 2a, and it will be negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. So that's where the formula comes from, but we just need to be able to use it now. So the first step that we need is when we are solving the equation 9x squared plus 15x plus 5, we just need to identify what our A, what our B is, and what our C is. So in this case, I've got A is 9, B is 15, and C equals 5. The next step is literally using the formula and substituting in our values. So you must know the formula by heart. Now I've done this, I'm just going to simplify it. So with simplifying, I'm just going to use a calculator for 15 squared minus 4 times 9 times 5. And the bottom will just be 18, 2 times 9. Yeah. So now I've got negative 15 plus or minus the square root of 45 over 18. Now I could get an answer as a decimal, which is a 5. In methods, we are expecting that we use inserts. So if I think about square root 45, that's the same as square root 9 times square root 40, so times square root 5. So over here, I'm just going to rewrite it. Square root 9 and square root 5 over 18. Now, we know square root 9 is 3, so that instantly means I can divide, I can factor out 3 already and divide the top and the bottom by 3. So that allows me to straight away go, x is going to be negative 15 divided by 3 is negative 5, plus or minus square root 5. 18 divided by 3 equals 6. So I've got my two answers there. If you are graphing, this looks a bit hard, so you do need to get it as a decimal to make it easier to graph, but I do expect your answers to be certain. So the next question that we're going to look at is a 3x squared plus 8x plus 2 equals 0. So the same thing, we've got a few things we need to do. One is identify A, B, and C. So in this case, A is 3, B is 8, and C is 2. So it's literally knowing what A, B, and C is in the standard form. The second thing is just substituting those values into the equation. So we've got negative 8 plus or minus square root 8 squared minus 4, 3 times 2 over 2 times 3. Again, we are just simplifying this. So 8 squared is 64. 4 times 3 is 12 times 2 is 24. So 64 take away 24. And 2 times 3 on the bottom. Now we've got to this point, I'm just going to check if there's any numbers that I can simplify my surd, which is I can. 40 can be divided by 4 and 10. So I'm just going to rewrite it as square root 4, square root 10 over 6. That also tells me that square root of 4 is 2, so I can divide everything by 2. So negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4, plus or minus square root 10. 6 divided by 2 is 3. The final step is putting this into the calculator to actually be able to graph it effectively. Again, make sure you write your points using those two values.